Question 1. The assessment process reveals that a critical business application developed on IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition requires a significant update to its data schema to accommodate new reporting requirements. This application is heavily integrated with several other Domino applications and is used by a large, geographically dispersed user base. Which of the following approaches to managing this change best aligns with professional best practices for application development and deployment in this environment? Option A. Focus solely on the technical aspects of the schema change, ensuring the code is updated correctly, and assume that any user-facing issues will be addressed reactively through support tickets. Option B. Conduct a thorough impact assessment that identifies all affected applications, user groups, and Domino server resources, analyzes potential data migration challenges, and defines a phased rollout strategy with rollback plans. Option C. Implement the schema change in a single, large deployment during a weekend to minimize disruption, without extensive pre-deployment testing beyond basic functional checks. Option D. Proceed with the schema update immediately, relying on the application's existing backup procedures to recover from any unforeseen issues, and inform users only after the deployment is complete. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough impact assessment that identifies all affected applications, user groups, and Domino server resources, analyzes potential data migration challenges, and defines a phased rollout strategy with rollback plans. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in application development, balancing the need for rapid deployment with the imperative of thorough impact assessment. In the context of IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition, this involves understanding how changes to an application, particularly those affecting data structures, user interfaces, or integration points, can ripple through the existing Domino environment and impact end users, other applications, and the underlying infrastructure. The professionally challenging aspect lies in the interconnectedness of Domino applications. A seemingly minor modification to one application can have unforeseen consequences on others that rely on its data or functionality, or even on the performance and stability of the Domino server itself. This necessitates a proactive and systematic approach to identify potential risks and mitigate them before deployment. The correct approach, which involves a comprehensive impact assessment, represents best professional practice because it aligns with the principles of responsible software development and IT governance. By systematically analyzing the proposed changes, identifying all affected components, applications, data, users, infrastructure, and evaluating the potential consequences, functional, performance, security, usability, developers can make informed decisions about the scope of testing, the necessary rollback procedures, and the communication plan for end users. This proactive risk management minimizes the likelihood of disruptive incidents, ensures business continuity, and maintains user trust. Incorrect approaches fail to adequately address the inherent risks. For instance, a purely technical assessment that overlooks user experience or business process implications is incomplete. Similarly, an assessment that focuses only on immediate functional changes without considering long-term maintainability or scalability is short-sighted. These omissions can lead to unexpected system failures, user dissatisfaction, data corruption, or security vulnerabilities, all of which carry significant professional and organizational repercussions. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured methodology. 1. Define the scope of the change clearly. 2. Identify all direct and indirect dependencies. 3. Analyze potential impacts across functional, technical, user, and business domains. 4. Quantify risks where possible or qualitatively assess their severity. 5. Develop mitigation strategies and contingency plans. 6. Document the assessment and communicate findings to stakeholders. 7. Obtain necessary approvals before proceeding with deployment. Question 2. Operational review demonstrates that a new IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application is nearing completion, designed to manage customer contact information and sales leads. The development team has focused primarily on functionality and user interface design. What is the most critical next step to ensure the application's security and compliance before deployment? Option A. Initiate performance testing to ensure the application can handle a high volume of concurrent users. Option B. Conduct a thorough risk assessment to identify potential vulnerabilities and implement appropriate security controls. Option C. Immediately deploy the application to gather user feedback and identify any functional bugs. Option D. Begin developing a comprehensive user training manual for the new application. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough risk assessment to identify potential vulnerabilities and implement appropriate security controls. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient application development with robust risk assessment, a critical component of ensuring data integrity and security within an IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 environment. The challenge lies in identifying and mitigating potential vulnerabilities that could arise from the application's design and implementation, particularly concerning sensitive data. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the risk assessment process is thorough, practical, and aligned with the organization's overall security posture and any applicable regulatory requirements. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it proactively integrates risk assessment into the development lifecycle. By identifying potential risks early, developers can implement appropriate controls and mitigation strategies before the application is deployed. This aligns with the principles of secure software development and demonstrates due diligence in protecting application data and system integrity. In the context of IBM Notes and Domino, this might involve assessing risks related to access control, data encryption, agent security, and potential vulnerabilities in custom code or Lotus script. An incorrect approach that fails to conduct a comprehensive risk assessment before deployment is professionally unacceptable. This failure constitutes a significant regulatory and ethical lapse. It exposes the organization to potential data breaches, compliance violations, depending on the industry and data handled, and reputational damage. For instance, neglecting to assess the risk of unauthorized access to sensitive customer data within a Domino database would be a direct violation of data protection principles and potentially specific regulations governing data privacy. Similarly, overlooking the risk of malicious agents or scripts could lead to system compromise. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a structured and iterative risk assessment process. This involves 1. Identifying assets and potential threats, 2. Analyzing vulnerabilities, 3. Evaluating the likelihood and impact of risks, 4. Determining appropriate mitigation strategies, and 5. Documenting and regularly reviewing the assessment. This systematic approach ensures that risks are managed effectively throughout the application development lifecycle, from initial design to ongoing maintenance. Question 3. The performance metrics show a significant increase in response times for critical user-facing applications within the IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition environment. The development team needs to address this issue promptly. Which of the following approaches represents the most effective and responsible method for diagnosing and resolving the performance degradation? Option A. Prioritize addressing user-reported issues by making ad hoc code changes to the most frequently mentioned problematic applications without a systematic analysis of the underlying cause. Option B. Conduct a thorough risk assessment by analyzing application code, database design, server configurations, and network latency, correlating findings with the collected performance metrics to identify the root cause before implementing any solutions. Option C. Immediately implement a comprehensive server hardware upgrade across all Domino servers, assuming that increased processing power will resolve the performance bottlenecks. Option D. Focus exclusively on optimizing Domino server settings and replication schedules, disregarding the application's custom code and database structure as potential contributors to the performance issues. Correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough risk assessment by analyzing application code, database design, server configurations, and network latency, correlating findings with the collected performance metrics to identify the root cause before implementing any solutions. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development where performance degradation impacts user experience and potentially business operations. The challenge lies in accurately identifying the root cause of the performance issues within a complex IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition environment, which can involve multiple layers of technology, custom code, and infrastructure. A hasty or incorrect diagnosis can lead to wasted resources, prolonged downtime, and a failure to meet user expectations, all of which carry significant business and potentially regulatory implications if data integrity or availability is compromised. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and data-driven risk assessment. This begins with gathering detailed performance metrics, as indicated in the question. Following this, a thorough analysis of the application's architecture, including custom Lotus script or Java agents, Domino database design, server configurations, and network latency, is crucial. Identifying potential bottlenecks or single points of failure through this analysis allows for targeted testing and validation. Documenting the findings and proposed solutions ensures transparency and accountability. This methodical process aligns with best practices for application lifecycle management and risk mitigation, aiming to resolve the issue efficiently and effectively while minimizing disruption. In the context of IBM notes and Domino, this often involves understanding how specific code constructs, database replication settings, or server resource allocation can impact performance. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a broad, untested fix without a clear understanding of the root cause is a significant risk. This approach bypasses the critical step of risk assessment, potentially introducing new problems or failing to address the actual issue. It is ethically questionable as it expends resources without a justifiable basis and can lead to prolonged user dissatisfaction. From a regulatory perspective, if the performance issue impacts the availability or integrity of regulated data, this haphazard approach could lead to non-compliance with data protection or business continuity regulations. Focusing solely on server hardware upgrades without analyzing the application code or database design is another flawed approach. While hardware can be a bottleneck, it's often not the sole or primary cause of performance issues in a Note/Domino environment. This approach ignores the potential for inefficient code or database structures to consume excessive resources, leading to wasted investment and an unresolved problem. It represents a failure in due diligence and a lack of comprehensive risk assessment. Ignoring user reports and focusing only on technical metrics is also problematic. User feedback often provides invaluable context and can highlight specific workflows or operations that are experiencing the most significant degradation. Dismissing this input means missing crucial clues that could expedite the identification of the root cause. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for user experience and can lead to a breakdown in trust between the development team and the end users. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach performance issues by first establishing a baseline through comprehensive metric collection. This is followed by a structured risk assessment that considers all potential contributing factors: application code, database design, server configuration, and infrastructure. Prioritizing potential causes based on likelihood and impact allows for focused investigation and testing. Documentation throughout the process is essential for knowledge sharing, auditing, and future problem solving. When faced with performance challenges, the decision-making process should involve 1. Data gathering, collect all relevant performance metrics and user feedback. 2. Hypothesis generation, formulate plausible explanations for the observed performance issues. 3. Risk assessment, evaluate the likelihood and impact of each hypothesis. 4. Targeted testing, design and execute tests to validate or refute hypotheses. 5. Solution implementation, develop and deploy solutions based on validated findings. 6. Verification, monitor performance post-implementation to confirm resolution. Question 4. Operational review demonstrates that a critical IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application is experiencing performance degradation due to an outdated data indexing mechanism. The development team has identified a new, more efficient indexing method that could significantly improve performance. However, implementing this change requires modifying core application logic and database schemas. The business unit is pressing for an immediate resolution to the performance issues. Which of the following approaches best balances the need for rapid resolution with the imperative to maintain application integrity and minimize risk? Option A. Advise the business unit that the performance issues cannot be addressed without a complete application rewrite, delaying any changes indefinitely until a major project can be initiated. Option B. Implement the new indexing mechanism directly in the production environment after a brief internal discussion, prioritizing speed of deployment to address user complaints. Option C. Develop and thoroughly test the new indexing mechanism in a dedicated staging environment that mirrors the production setup. Document all changes, create a detailed rollback plan, and schedule the deployment during a low-usage period after obtaining necessary approvals. Option D. Apply the new indexing mechanism to a subset of the production database to observe its impact before a full rollout, without formal testing or rollback procedures. The correct answer is B. Implement the new indexing mechanism directly in the production environment after a brief internal discussion, prioritizing speed of deployment to address user complaints. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid development needs and the imperative to maintain data integrity and security within an IBM Notes/Domino 9.0 social edition application. Developer must balance the desire for new features with the potential risks of introducing vulnerabilities or corrupting existing data. The core of the challenge lies in making informed decisions about how to implement changes without compromising the stability and trustworthiness of the application, especially when dealing with sensitive user data. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and controlled deployment process. This involves thorough testing in a non-production environment, comprehensive documentation of changes, and a rollback plan. This methodology aligns with general principles of software development lifecycle management and good IT governance, which are implicitly expected in professional settings even if not explicitly codified by a specific, named regulatory body for this exam's context. The emphasis on risk mitigation and validation ensures that the application remains functional, secure, and reliable for its users, thereby upholding professional responsibility. An incorrect approach that bypasses testing and documentation introduces significant risks. This could lead to data corruption, security breaches, or application instability, all of which have severe professional and potentially legal ramifications. Failure to test thoroughly is a direct violation of the principle of due diligence in software development. Deploying changes without a rollback plan exacerbates these risks, as there is no mechanism to recover from unforeseen issues, leading to prolonged downtime and potential data loss. This demonstrates a lack of professional foresight and a disregard for the impact on end users and the organization. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on immediate user requests without considering the broader impact, is also professionally unsound. While user satisfaction is important, it should not come at the expense of application integrity or security. This approach prioritizes short-term gains over long-term stability and can lead to technical debt and future problems that are more difficult and costly to resolve. It reflects a reactive rather than a proactive approach to application management. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment. Before implementing any change, developers should ask, what are the potential benefits? What are the potential risks? How can these risks be mitigated? What is the impact of failure? This framework encourages a balanced consideration of all factors, leading to more robust and responsible development practices. It involves consulting with stakeholders, understanding business requirements, and adhering to established best practices in software engineering. Question 5. Assessment of the most effective strategy for retrieving and processing a large volume of related data within an IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 social edition application, considering performance and scalability. Option A. Write a Lotus script agent that iterates through every document in the database, performing calculations and data manipulation directly within the agent's execution loop. Option B. Create a scheduled agent that replicates the entire database to a local replica on a separate server for processing, then imports the processed data back into the main database. Option C. Develop client-side JavaScript functions that iterate through all documents in the database to perform the necessary calculations and data aggregation. Option D. Implement server-side views with appropriate indexes to pre-process and organize the data, and utilize computed fields where the calculation logic is static and can be evaluated at document save. The correct answer is D. Implement server-side views with appropriate indexes to pre-process and organize the data, and utilize computed fields where the calculation logic is static and can be evaluated at document save. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, balancing the need for efficient data retrieval with the potential for performance degradation and increased resource consumption. Developers must consider the long-term implications of their design choices, particularly when dealing with large datasets or complex relationships within the application. The core of the challenge lies in understanding the trade-offs between different data access patterns and their impact on the overall user experience and system stability. The correct approach emphasizes proactive performance optimization by leveraging Domino's built-in capabilities for indexing and efficient data retrieval. By creating appropriate views and utilizing computed fields judiciously, developers can ensure that data is readily accessible without resorting to inefficient, on-the-fly calculations that can bog down the server. This aligns with best practices for Domino application development, which prioritize performance and scalability. The regulatory framework for application development, while not explicitly detailed in the exam syllabus for C 2040-409, implicitly supports the development of robust and reliable applications. In a professional context, this translates to delivering solutions that are not only functional but also performant and maintainable, thereby meeting client expectations and adhering to industry standards for quality. An incorrect approach that involves iterating through every document in a database to perform calculations is fundamentally flawed. This method is highly inefficient, especially as the database grows, places an unnecessary burden on the Domino server, leading to slow response times, potential timeouts, and increased resource utilization. From a professional and ethical standpoint, this approach demonstrates a lack of understanding of Domino's architecture and performance best practices, potentially leading to client dissatisfaction and increased maintenance costs. Another incorrect approach, relying solely on client-side JavaScript for complex data aggregation, shifts the processing burden to the end user's machine. While this might offer some perceived performance gains for individual users in specific scenarios, it can lead to inconsistent performance across different client machines with varying capabilities. More importantly, it can expose sensitive data to the client and make the application more vulnerable to manipulation. This approach fails to leverage the server's power for data processing and can create security risks, which are implicitly governed by professional development standards that prioritize data integrity and security. Finally, an approach that involves frequent, unscheduled replication of the entire database to a local replica for processing is also problematic. While replication is a core feature of Domino, using it as a primary mechanism for data processing is inefficient and can lead to data synchronization issues and increased network traffic, bypasses the intended use of replication, and can introduce complexities in managing data consistency, which is a critical aspect of professional application development. The professional decision-making process for such situations involves a thorough understanding of the application's requirements, the expected data volume, and the capabilities of the Domino platform. Developers should prioritize solutions that leverage Domino's strengths, such as views, agents, and server-side scripting, for efficient data management and retrieval. Performance testing and profiling are crucial steps to validate design choices and identify potential bottlenecks before deployment. Adhering to established Domino development best practices ensures the creation of robust, scalable, and maintainable applications. Question 6. Comparative studies suggest that when developing IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 social edition applications, a proactive approach to identifying and mitigating potential security vulnerabilities is paramount. Considering the inherent complexities of data access and user permissions within the Domino environment, which of the following strategies best aligns with a robust risk assessment framework for ensuring application security and integrity? Option A. Implement the most restrictive access controls possible for all data and application functions by default, and only grant exceptions on a case-by-case basis after extensive justification. Option B. Rely on the built-in security features of IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 without conducting any specific risk assessment, assuming they are sufficient for most common threats. Option C. Focus primarily on rapid application deployment and user feature implementation, addressing security concerns only when specific incidents or user complaints arise. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive threat modeling exercise to identify potential attack vectors and vulnerabilities, followed by a systematic evaluation of the likelihood and impact of these risks to prioritize mitigation efforts. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive threat modeling exercise to identify potential attack vectors and vulnerabilities, followed by a systematic evaluation of the likelihood and impact of these risks to prioritize mitigation efforts. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for robust security measures with the practicalities of application development and user access within an IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 environment. The core tension lies in identifying and mitigating potential risks associated with data access and modification without unduly hindering legitimate business operations. The regulatory framework for this exam, while not explicitly stated as a specific country's law, implies adherence to general data protection principles and best practices for application security and integrity as would be expected in a professional development context. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it systematically identifies potential vulnerabilities and threats before they can be exploited. A thorough risk assessment, involving threat modeling and vulnerability analysis, allows developers to prioritize mitigation strategies based on the likelihood and impact of potential security incidents. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining data confidentiality, integrity, and availability, aligning with the fundamental principles of secure application development and data governance. It ensures that security is integrated into the development lifecycle, rather than being an afterthought. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on implementing the most restrictive access controls without understanding the business context is professionally unacceptable. This fails to acknowledge that security measures must be proportionate to the risks and should not create unnecessary barriers to productivity. Such an approach could lead to user frustration, workarounds that bypass security, and ultimately, a less secure system. It also represents a failure to conduct a proper risk assessment, as it doesn't consider the impact of overrestriction. Another incorrect approach that relies on ad hoc security measures without a structured assessment is also professionally flawed. This reactive and unsystematic method is unlikely to identify all significant risks and may lead to the implementation of ineffective or even counterproductive security controls. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adhere to established security best practices, potentially leaving the application vulnerable to known or emerging threats. A further incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of development over security considerations is ethically and professionally unsound. This approach directly contravenes the responsibility to protect sensitive data and ensure the integrity of the application. It creates a high probability of security vulnerabilities being introduced, which can have severe consequences for the organization and its users, including data breaches, financial loss, and reputational damage. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment methodology. This begins with identifying assets and their value, followed by identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities. Next, the likelihood and impact of these threats are analyzed to determine the overall risk level. Based on this assessment, appropriate mitigation strategies are developed and prioritized. This iterative process ensures that security is a continuous consideration throughout the application lifecycle, from design to deployment and maintenance. Question 7. Strategic planning requires a thorough assessment of existing IBM Notes/Domino 9.0 Social Edition applications before undertaking modernization or migration efforts. Considering the stakeholder perspective, which of the following approaches best balances risk, business continuity, and the successful adoption of a new solution? Option A. A direct lift and shift of the existing application to a new infrastructure without any re-architecture. Option B. A phased migration strategy that involves detailed analysis, incremental deployment, and comprehensive user training. Option C. A complete Big Bang replacement of the entire application over a single weekend to minimize disruption. Option D. Prioritizing the development of new features for the modernized application before ensuring the stability of the core migration. The correct answer is B. A phased migration strategy that involves detailed analysis, incremental deployment, and comprehensive user training. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development where a critical business process relies on a legacy IBM Notes/Domino application. The challenge lies in balancing the need for modernization and improved user experience with the constraints of existing infrastructure, data integrity, and the potential disruption to ongoing business operations. Stakeholders, including end users, IT management, and potentially compliance officers, will have differing priorities and risk tolerances. The need for a robust, secure, and compliant solution that minimizes business interruption is paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on a phased migration strategy. This involves thorough analysis of the existing application's functionality, data, and dependencies. It prioritizes understanding the business value and criticality of each component. By developing a clear roadmap that includes pilot testing, incremental deployment, and comprehensive user training, this strategy minimizes risk. It ensures that data integrity is maintained throughout the transition and that the new solution meets all relevant regulatory requirements, as per the C2040-409 exam scope, which implies adherence to general data protection and application security principles within a business context, without specifying a particular jurisdiction's laws. This approach aligns with best practices for managing complex IT transformations, ensuring business continuity and stakeholder satisfaction. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves a Big Bang migration, where the entire application is replaced at once. This is professionally challenging because it carries a high risk of system failure, data loss, and significant business disruption. It fails to account for the complexity of legacy systems and the potential for unforeseen issues, which can lead to regulatory non-compliance if critical business functions are interrupted or data is compromised. Another incorrect approach is to simply lift and shift the existing application to a new platform without any re-architecture or modernization. Seemingly simpler, this often fails to address underlying technical debt, security vulnerabilities, or user experience issues. It may also perpetuate non-compliant practices embedded in the old system and does not leverage the benefits of modern development paradigms, potentially leading to long-term maintenance issues and increased risk. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize new feature development over the stability and security of the migration. This can lead to a rushed or incomplete migration process, where critical data migration or security hardening steps are overlooked. This increases the likelihood of errors, data corruption, and security breaches, which have direct implications for regulatory compliance and business trust. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based, iterative approach to application modernization. This involves 1. Comprehensive discovery. Understand the existing application's architecture, data, dependencies, and business criticality. 2. Stakeholder alignment. Engage all stakeholders to define clear objectives, priorities, and success criteria. 3. Phased planning. Develop a detailed migration roadmap with clear milestones, including pilot phases and rollback strategies. 4. Incremental execution. Migrate functionality and data in manageable stages, with rigorous testing at each step. 5. Continuous validation. Ensure data integrity, security, and compliance throughout the process. 6. User enablement. Provide adequate training and support to end users. This structured decision-making process mitigates risks, ensures business continuity, and delivers a solution that meets both technical and business requirements. Question 8. To address the challenge of a critical business application requiring immediate deployment in IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition, but with a newly discovered, albeit potentially low-impact, vulnerability that could expose sensitive customer data, what is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Deploy the application and then immediately inform stakeholders about the discovered vulnerability and its potential implications. Option B. Delay the deployment until the vulnerability is fully assessed and mitigated, even if it impacts the immediate business need. Option C. Proceed with the deployment as planned, assuming the risk is minimal and addressing the vulnerability in a future update. Option D. Ignore the vulnerability, deeming it insignificant, and proceed with the deployment to meet the urgent business deadline. The correct answer is B. Delay the deployment until the vulnerability is fully assessed and mitigated, even if it impacts the immediate business need. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to protect sensitive customer data within an IBM Notes/Domino application. The developer is aware of a potential vulnerability that, if exploited, could lead to unauthorized access and disclosure of personally identifiable information, PI. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need to deploy a critical business application with the paramount responsibility to ensure data security and compliance with data protection principles inherent in application development. The pressure to meet deadlines can create a temptation to overlook or downplay security risks. Making careful judgment and adherence to ethical guidelines crucial. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes data security and compliance by delaying deployment until the vulnerability is addressed. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principle of do no harm and the professional responsibility to develop secure applications. In the context of IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application development, this means adhering to best practices for secure coding and data handling, which are implicitly expected even if not explicitly codified in a single regulation for this exam scope. Proactively identifying and mitigating security risks before deployment demonstrates a commitment to user privacy and data integrity, thereby upholding professional standards and preventing potential legal and reputational damage. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves deploying the application with the known vulnerability, assuming the risk is low or that it will be addressed later. This is a significant ethical and professional failure. It violates the implicit trust placed in developers to safeguard data and exposes the organization and its users to potential data breaches, which could have severe legal and financial repercussions. Such an action disregards the principle of due diligence in application security. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the vulnerability as a minor issue without proper investigation or consultation. This demonstrates a lack of technical rigor and ethical responsibility. It fails to acknowledge the potential impact of even seemingly small security flaws, which can be exploited by malicious actors. This approach neglects the professional duty to thoroughly assess and address all identified risks. A third incorrect approach is to proceed with deployment and then inform stakeholders about the vulnerability only after it has been discovered or exploited. This is reactive rather than proactive and represents a failure in transparency and risk management. It undermines confidence and can lead to significant damage control efforts, which are far more costly and damaging than preventative measures. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to application development. This involves identifying potential security threats early in the development lifecycle, assessing their impact, and implementing appropriate mitigation strategies. When a vulnerability is discovered, the professional decision-making process should involve 1. Thoroughly understanding the nature and potential impact of the vulnerability. 2. Consulting with relevant stakeholders, e.g., security teams, management, to determine the acceptable level of risk. 3. Prioritizing the remediation of critical vulnerabilities before deployment. 4. Documenting all security assessments and remediation efforts. 5. Adhering to organizational policies and industry best practices for secure application development. Question 9. Benchmark analysis indicates that a custom application developed on IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition is experiencing performance issues related to data retrieval and is also raising concerns about potential data exposure. The application displays customer contact information, including sensitive financial details, to various user roles. The development team is considering several strategies to address these issues, which approach best balances performance optimization with robust data security and compliance within the Domino environment. Option A. Embed database credentials directly within the application's Lotus script code to bypass standard access checks for faster data retrieval. Option B. Design views with specific reader fields and configure the database's access control list, ACL, to restrict access to documents based on user roles and group memberships. Option C. Grant all users read access to the entire database through the ACL and rely on the application's UI to hide sensitive fields. Option D. Retrieve all documents from the database and implement client-side Lotus script or JavaScript to filter the displayed information based on user roles. The correct answer is B. Design views with specific reader fields and configure the database's access control list, ACL, to restrict access to documents based on user roles and group memberships. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, where a developer must balance the need for efficient data retrieval with the potential for exposing sensitive information. The challenge lies in understanding the implications of different data access methods within the context of IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition security model and its underlying data structures. Developers must consider not only the technical performance, but also the security and compliance aspects of data handling. The professional challenge is to implement a solution that is both performant and adheres to data access policies, preventing unauthorized disclosure. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging the Domino database's built-in security features and the applications designed to control data visibility. Specifically, using views with appropriate reader fields and access control lists, ACL, ensures that users can only see documents they are authorized to access. This method aligns with the principle of least privilege, a fundamental security best practice. By filtering data at the database level through views, the application logic remains cleaner and relies on the robust security mechanisms provided by Domino. This is the most professional practice as it directly addresses data security and compliance by design, minimizing the risk of data leakage and ensuring adherence to data governance policies inherent in application development. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to retrieve all documents and then filter them in the client-side Lotus script or JavaScript code. This is a significant security failure because it bypasses the database's native security controls. Sensitive data could be inadvertently exposed to users who should not have access, violating data privacy regulations and internal security policies. It also represents a performance inefficiency, as unnecessary data is transferred and processed. Another incorrect approach is to grant broad access permissions at the database or server level without granular control. This is a direct violation of the principle of least privilege. It creates a high risk of unauthorized access to all data within the database, regardless of user roles or responsibilities, leading to potential data breaches and noncompliance with data protection laws. A third incorrect approach would be to embed sensitive credentials within the application code to access data. This is a critical security vulnerability. If the application code is compromised, these credentials could be exploited to gain unauthorized access to the database and its contents, leading to severe data breaches and legal repercussions. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach this by first understanding the data sensitivity and the intended audience for each piece of information. They should then consult the application's security requirements and any relevant data governance policies. The next step is to design the data access strategy using the most secure and efficient methods available within the IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition framework. This typically involves designing views with appropriate reader fields and configuring ACLs to enforce granular access control. If client-side filtering is absolutely necessary, it should be a secondary layer of defense, not the primary one, and must be implemented with extreme caution to avoid exposing data. Regular security reviews and testing are crucial to ensure the implemented controls are effective. Question 10. The efficiency study reveals that the IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 application's performance can be significantly improved by analyzing detailed user session logs. However, these logs contain sensitive information about user interactions and data accessed within the application. The development team is considering implementing a new logging mechanism that captures this granular data for a comprehensive performance analysis, with the goal of identifying bottlenecks and optimizing the user experience. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible approach to proceed with this efficiency study? Option A. Proceed with capturing and analyzing the detailed user session logs as they are, assuming that performance optimization benefits outweigh any potential privacy concerns for individual users. Option B. Inform users that their session data will be logged and analyzed for performance improvements, but proceed with capturing all detailed data without seeking explicit consent for this specific analysis purpose. Option C. Halt the efficiency study entirely, as any analysis of user session data, even for performance improvement, carries inherent privacy risks that cannot be adequately mitigated. Option D. Implement the new logging mechanism to capture detailed user session data, anonymize it where possible, and then analyze it for performance improvements, ensuring that only aggregated and anonymized data is used for reporting. Correct answer is D. Implement the new logging mechanism to capture detailed user session data, anonymize it where possible, and then analyze it for performance improvements, ensuring that only aggregated and anonymized data is used for reporting. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a classic ethical dilemma where the pursuit of efficiency clashes with the principle of data privacy and user consent. The challenge lies in balancing the organization's desire to optimize application performance with the responsibility to protect sensitive user information and adhere to established data handling protocols. Developers are often under pressure to deliver faster, more streamlined applications, but this pressure must not override fundamental ethical and regulatory obligations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes user consent and data minimization, aligning with best practices in data privacy and ethical software development. By anonymizing or aggregating data before analysis, and only using data that users have explicitly consented to share for performance monitoring, the developer upholds the trust placed in them by the application's users. This approach respects individual privacy rights and adheres to the spirit of data protection regulations, even if not explicitly detailed in the exam's specific regulatory framework. By following universally accepted ethical principles of data handling, it demonstrates a commitment to responsible technology development. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves directly accessing and analyzing individual user session data without explicit consent. This violates the principle of user privacy and could be seen as a breach of trust, even if the data is not intended for malicious purposes. The lack of consent makes its collection and analysis ethically questionable and potentially non-compliant with data protection principles. Another incorrect approach is to assume that all data collected by the application is implicitly available for any purpose, including efficiency studies. This demonstrates a disregard for data governance and user consent. Without clear guidelines or explicit permissions, using data for purposes beyond its original collection intent is a significant ethical and professional failing. A further incorrect approach might be to proceed with the analysis using sensitive data, justifying it by the potential for broad application improvement. This prioritizes organizational benefit over individual rights and privacy, which is a fundamental ethical misstep. It suggests a lack of understanding of the importance of data ethics and responsible development. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with identifying potential ethical and privacy implications. This involves understanding the data being handled, its sensitivity, and the expectations of users. Next, they should consult relevant organizational policies and any applicable regulatory guidelines concerning data privacy and consent. If there is ambiguity, seeking clarification from legal or compliance departments is crucial. The principle of privacy by design should guide development, meaning privacy considerations are integrated from the outset. When faced with a conflict between efficiency gains and ethical obligations, the ethical obligation to protect user privacy and obtain consent must always take precedence. Question 11. Process analysis reveals that a critical business application developed on IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition needs to integrate with a new cloud-based analytics platform. The application contains sensitive customer data that must be migrated to the cloud platform for advanced reporting. The development team is considering several methods for extracting and transferring this data. Which approach best balances data security, integrity, and compliance with regulatory frameworks governing data privacy and transfer? Option A. Manually copy data from Domino views into a local spreadsheet and then upload the spreadsheet to the cloud platform. Option B. Directly expose the Domino database to the internet and allow the cloud platform to pull data as needed. Option C. Utilize Domino's native agents or load a script to export data into a standardized format e.g. XML, CSV, and then securely transfer it to the cloud service using encrypted protocols e.g. TLS/SSL. Option D. Export data from Domino using an older, less common export utility, and assume the cloud platform can handle any necessary transformations. The correct answer is C. Utilize Domino's native agents or load a script to export data into a standardized format, e.g. XML, CSV, and then securely transfer it to the cloud service using encrypted protocols e.g. TLS/SSL. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development where a legacy system needs to integrate with a modern cloud-based service. The core difficulty lies in ensuring data integrity, security, and compliance during the transition. Developers must balance the need for efficient data transfer with the strict requirements of data privacy regulations, which are paramount in any professional development context. The risk of data leakage or corruption during migration is significant, demanding a meticulous and compliant approach. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging the IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition's built-in capabilities for secure data export and transformation, combined with a robust, encrypted transfer mechanism to the cloud service. This aligns with best practices for data migration and security. Specifically, using Domino's native agents or Lotus script to extract data into a structured, standardized format like XML or CSV before transmission ensures data consistency. Subsequently, employing industry-standard encryption protocols, e.g., TLS/SSL, during the transfer to the cloud service directly addresses data in transit security. This method minimizes the attack surface and ensures that data remains protected throughout the migration process, adhering to principles of data minimization and security by design, which are fundamental to data protection regulations. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves directly exposing the Domino database to the Internet without any intermediary security measures or data transformation. This is a severe regulatory and ethical failure, as it bypasses all security protocols and leaves sensitive data vulnerable to unauthorized access and breaches, violating principles of data confidentiality and integrity. Another incorrect approach is to manually copy and paste data from Domino views into a local file and then upload it to the cloud. This method is prone to human error, data corruption, and lacks any form of audit trail. It fails to meet the standards of data accuracy and reliability expected in professional development and regulatory compliance, potentially leading to inaccurate reporting or analysis in the cloud service. A third incorrect approach is to use an outdated or proprietary export format from Domino that the cloud service cannot reliably parse, leading to data loss or misinterpretation. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence in understanding the target system's requirements and the implications for data integrity, which can have significant regulatory consequences if it leads to non-compliance with data reporting or retention policies. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such integration tasks by first conducting a thorough risk assessment, identifying potential data vulnerabilities, and regulatory compliance gaps. This involves understanding both the source system's capabilities and the target system's requirements, as well as the applicable data protection laws. The development process should then prioritize security and compliance at every stage, from data extraction and transformation to transmission and final ingestion. Utilizing documented, secure, and tested methods for data handling is crucial. In cases of doubt or complexity, consulting with security and compliance experts is a professional imperative. Question 12. Consider a scenario where you are developing an IBM Notes/Domino 9.0 Social Edition application that allows users to search for customer contact information. A new requirement is to display a last contacted date and time for each customer, pulled from a separate internal system. This information, while useful for sales representatives, is considered sensitive and not typically shared externally. You have the technical capability to directly query and display this sensitive timestamp within the Notes application's user interface. What is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Design the feature to only display the last contacted timestamp if the accessing user has a specific, documented business need and role that requires this information, and ensure the data is encrypted at rest and in transit within the Notes database. Option B. Implement the feature by displaying the last contacted timestamp, but anonymize the data by removing the specific date and time, showing only the month and year. Option C. Implement the feature by directly querying and displaying the sensitive, last contacted timestamp for all users who can access the customer contact information, as this fulfills the functional requirement. Option D. Implement the feature, but add a clear disclaimer to users that the last contacted information is sensitive and should be handled with care, without altering the data access. The correct answer is C. Implement the feature by directly querying and displaying the sensitive, last contacted timestamp for all users who can access the customer contact information, as this fulfills the functional requirement. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data privacy and security within an IBM Notes/Domino application, specifically concerning the handling of sensitive customer information. The developer is tasked with implementing a feature that, while beneficial for user experience, could inadvertently expose confidential data if not properly secured. The core of the challenge lies in balancing functionality with the ethical and regulatory obligation to protect user data. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any solution adheres to the principles of data minimization, purpose limitation, and robust security measures, all within the context of applicable data protection regulations. The correct approach involves designing the application feature with explicit consideration for data security and user consent. This means implementing access controls that restrict viewing of sensitive data to authorized personnel only, and potentially anonymizing or aggregating data where full detail is not strictly necessary for the feature's operation. Furthermore, it aligns with best professional practice by prioritizing user privacy and data protection, which are fundamental ethical tenets and often mandated by regulatory frameworks. This approach demonstrates a commitment to responsible development and builds trust with users by safeguarding their information. An incorrect approach that involves storing sensitive customer data in a readily accessible, unencrypted format within the application's database poses significant regulatory and ethical failures. This directly violates principles of data security and confidentiality, potentially leading to unauthorized access and breaches. Such a failure could contravene data protection laws that mandate appropriate technical and organizational measures to protect personal data. Another incorrect approach, such as sharing this sensitive data with third parties without explicit user consent or a legitimate business need, represents a severe breach of privacy and trust. This would likely violate data protection regulations concerning data sharing and consent, leading to legal repercussions and reputational damage. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying all potential risks associated with a feature, particularly concerning data privacy and security. This should be followed by a thorough review of relevant data protection regulations and internal company policies. The next step involves exploring design options that mitigate identified risks, prioritizing solutions that adhere to the principles of data minimization and security by design. Finally, seeking input from security experts or legal counsel, if necessary, ensures that the chosen solution is both technically sound and compliant with all applicable requirements. Question 13. The investigation demonstrates that a custom IBM Note/Domino 9.0 Social Edition application, designed to manage employee performance reviews, has inadvertently exposed sensitive personal data of several employees due to a misconfiguration in a shared view. The developer, upon discovering this, faces a decision on how to proceed. Option A. Immediately patch the view configuration to prevent further exposure. Document the incident internally, and proceed with developing a new feature for the application, without informing the affected employees or management about the exposure. Option B. Halt all development on the application, immediately notify the relevant data protection officer and legal counsel, and work with them to develop a comprehensive plan for notifying affected employees and rectifying the misconfiguration, ensuring all actions align with data protection regulations. Option C. Update the view configuration to restrict access, but only inform a select group of senior managers about the incident, advising them to monitor employee feedback for any signs of concern without directly disclosing the data exposure. Option D. Continue using the application as is, assuming the exposure was minor and unlikely to cause significant harm, and plan to address the misconfiguration during the next scheduled maintenance cycle. The correct answer is A. Immediately patch the view configuration to prevent further exposure, document the incident internally, and proceed with developing a new feature for the application without informing the affected employees or management about the exposure. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in data privacy and the ethical handling of sensitive information within an IBM Note/Domino application. The core dilemma lies in balancing the need for application functionality and user experience with the strict requirements of data protection regulations. The developer must make a judgment call on how to handle user data that might be inadvertently exposed, considering the potential impact on individuals and the organization. The correct approach prioritizes user privacy and regulatory compliance by immediately addressing the vulnerability and informing affected parties. This aligns with the principles of data minimization, purpose limitation, and transparency, which are fundamental to data protection laws. By taking prompt action and communicating openly, the developer upholds professional integrity and mitigates potential legal and reputational damage. This proactive stance demonstrates a commitment to ethical development practices and responsible data stewardship. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the vulnerability or to attempt to fix it without informing users or relevant authorities. This failure to disclose a data breach or potential breach is a direct violation of data protection regulations, which often mandate timely notification to individuals and supervisory authorities. Such inaction can lead to significant fines, legal action, and a severe erosion of trust. Another incorrect approach might be to downplay the severity of the issue or to provide incomplete information to users. This lack of transparency and honesty is ethically unsound and can exacerbate the negative consequences of the data exposure. It fails to empower individuals to take necessary steps to protect themselves and demonstrates a disregard for their rights. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the scope and nature of the data exposure. This involves a thorough technical assessment to identify the root cause and the extent of the compromised data. Subsequently, they should consult with legal and compliance teams to ensure adherence to all applicable regulations. A clear communication plan should be developed, outlining what information will be shared, with whom, and when. Transparency, accountability, and a commitment to rectifying the situation are paramount in maintaining professional credibility and protecting the rights of individuals. Question 14. Upon reviewing the performance metrics of a critical Lotus Notes 9.0 Social Edition application, a significant slowdown in document processing has been observed during peak usage hours. The application relies heavily on agent execution and view indexing. Which of the following strategies would be the most professionally sound and effective approach to optimize process performance? Option A. Deploy a third-party performance enhancement plugin for Lotus Notes without thoroughly investigating its compatibility and potential side effects on the existing application. Option B. Immediately implement a custom, complex agent that attempts to pre-process and cache data in a separate database without prior analysis of the existing application's logic. Option C. Increase the server's RAM and CPU allocation significantly, assuming that hardware limitations are the primary cause of the slowdown. Option D. Analyze agent logs and view index statistics to identify specific bottlenecks, then refactor inefficient agent code and optimize view design for faster retrieval. The correct answer is D. Analyze agent logs and view index statistics to identify specific bottlenecks, then refactor inefficient agent code and optimize view design for faster retrieval. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, balancing performance optimization with maintainability and adherence to established development practices. The professional challenge lies in identifying the most effective and compliant method to improve the processing speed of a critical Lotus Notes application without introducing technical debt or violating any implicit or explicit guidelines for application development within the IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition environment. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it focuses on understanding the root cause of performance degradation through systematic analysis and then implementing targeted, well-documented solutions. This aligns with principles of efficient resource utilization and robust application design, ensuring that improvements are sustainable and do not negatively impact future development or maintenance. Within the context of IBM Notes and Domino 9.0, this often involves leveraging built-in performance tuning features, optimizing database design, and judiciously applying scripting techniques. An incorrect approach that involves prematurely implementing complex, undocumented scripting without a clear understanding of the underlying issues is professionally unacceptable. This can lead to spaghetti code, making the application difficult to debug, maintain, and scale. It also risks introducing subtle bugs that could manifest under specific conditions, potentially leading to data corruption or system instability, which could have significant business implications. Another incorrect approach, such as simply increasing server resources without addressing application-level inefficiencies, is a costly and often ineffective solution that fails to resolve the core problem and is not a sustainable development practice. Relying solely on vendor-provided magic bullets without understanding their impact is also a failure of due diligence. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, thoroughly diagnose the performance bottleneck using available tools and logs. Second, research and evaluate potential solutions, prioritizing those that are well-documented, maintainable, and align with best practices for the specific platform. Third, implement the chosen solution in a controlled manner with thorough testing and rollback capabilities. Finally, document all changes and monitor the application's performance post-implementation. Question 15. The monitoring system demonstrates an unusual spike in access attempts to a sensitive customer data database within an IBM Domino 9.0 Social Edition application. The access pattern originates from an internal IP address but does not correspond to any known user activity or scheduled task. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action to address this potential security anomaly? Option A. Initiate a detailed forensic analysis of the server logs and network traffic associated with the suspicious IP address to identify the source and nature of the access, while temporarily isolating the affected database if initial analysis suggests a critical threat. Option B. Proactively modify the access control lists for the sensitive customer data database to restrict access to only a few designated administrators, without further investigation. Option C. Immediately disable all user accounts that have access to the sensitive customer data database to prevent any further unauthorized access. Option D. Ignore the alert, assuming it is a false positive, and continue with normal operations until further evidence of a breach is observed. The correct answer is A. Initiate a detailed forensic analysis of the server logs and network traffic associated with the suspicious IP address to identify the source and nature of the access, while temporarily isolating the affected database if initial analysis suggests a critical threat. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data security and access control within an IBM Note/Domino 9.0 Social Edition application. The monitoring system's alert indicates a potential unauthorized access attempt or a misconfiguration that could lead to data exposure. The core challenge lies in balancing the need for immediate investigation and remediation with the requirement to adhere to established security protocols and data privacy guidelines relevant to the application's operational context. Failure to act decisively could result in a security breach, while an overly aggressive or uncoordinated response could disrupt operations or violate data handling policies. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation that prioritizes data integrity and security compliance. This begins with verifying the alert's legitimacy and understanding the context of the access attempt. The subsequent steps should involve reviewing access logs, identifying the user or process involved, and assessing the potential impact on sensitive data. Based on this analysis, appropriate security measures such as revoking access, strengthening access controls, or implementing additional auditing are implemented. This approach aligns with best practices for incident response and data governance, ensuring that actions are data-driven, proportionate, and compliant with any applicable data protection regulations. The focus is on containment, eradication, and recovery, while maintaining an audit trail of all actions taken. Incorrect approaches analysis. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disable the entire application or revoke all user access without a thorough investigation. This is a disproportionate response that could cripple business operations and is not supported by a data-driven incident response framework. It fails to identify the root cause and may lead to unnecessary disruption. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the alert, assuming it is a false positive, without any verification. This represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure, as it demonstrates negligence in data security and a disregard for potential data breaches. Such an action could lead to severe compliance violations and reputational damage. A third incorrect approach would be to make ad hoc changes to access control lists or security settings without proper documentation or understanding of the impact. This can lead to unintended consequences, further compromising security or creating new vulnerabilities, and violates principles of change management and secure configuration. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a scenario should employ a structured incident response framework. This typically involves 1. Preparation, having established security policies and incident response plans in place. 2. Identification, actively monitoring systems and responding to alerts. 3. Containment, limiting the scope of the incident. 4. Eradication, removing the cause of the incident. 5. Recovery, restoring systems to normal operation. 6. Lessons learned. analyzing the incident to improve future responses. In this specific context, the decision-making process must prioritize data security, compliance with relevant data protection laws, and minimal disruption to legitimate business operations. A thorough, documented investigation is paramount before implementing any corrective actions. Question 16. Examination of the data shows that a new IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application is being developed to manage customer support tickets. The application requires different levels of access for support agents, supervisors, and administrators. Support agents need to view and update ticket details. Supervisors need to view all tickets and assign them, and administrators need full access to manage users and application settings. The application will store sensitive customer contact information within the ticket documents. What is the most appropriate approach to ensure data security and compliance with best practices for this application? Option A. Embed sensitive customer contact information directly within the user interface code, assuming that only authorized personnel will interact with the application. Option B. Implement a robust role-based access control system within the application, defining specific field-level permissions for each user role, agent, supervisor, administrator, to ensure users only access the data necessary for their job functions. Option C. Grant all users within the support user group read and write access to all fields within the ticket documents, relying on user training to prevent access to sensitive customer contact information. Option D. Design the application to allow all users to view all ticket details and instruct users to manually refrain from viewing or updating sensitive customer contact information if it is not relevant to their task. The correct answer is B. Implement a robust role-based access control system within the application, defining specific field-level permissions for each user role, agent, supervisor, administrator, to ensure users only access the data necessary for their job functions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between the need for efficient data access and the strict requirements for data privacy and security mandated by IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application development best practices. Developers must balance functionality with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive user information. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing solutions that are both effective for the application's purpose and compliant with established guidelines. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a granular, role-based access control mechanism. This aligns with the principle of least privilege, a fundamental tenet of secure application development. By granting access only to the specific data fields required for a user's role, the application minimizes the potential for unauthorized disclosure or misuse of sensitive information. This proactive security measure is crucial for maintaining user trust and adhering to the implicit and explicit security expectations within the IBM Notes and Domino environment, which often handles confidential business data. An incorrect approach that involves granting broad access to all fields within a document for a specific user group fails ethically and regulatorily. This violates the principle of least privilege, exposing more data than necessary, and increasing the risk of accidental or intentional data breaches. Such an approach could lead to noncompliance with data protection policies and potentially regulatory frameworks governing data handling, even if not explicitly stated in the exam's jurisdiction. The underlying ethical principles of data stewardship are universal. Another incorrect approach, which involves embedding sensitive data directly within the user interface code without any access control, is a severe security and ethical failure. This makes the data trivially accessible to anyone with even basic technical understanding of the application's front end, completely disregarding any notion of data privacy or security. This is a direct contravention of responsible application development and data handling practices. Finally, an approach that relies solely on user education to prevent misuse of broadly accessible data is insufficient and professionally negligent. While user awareness is important, it cannot substitute for robust technical controls. Over-reliance on user education without implementing appropriate access restrictions creates a false sense of security and leaves the application vulnerable to human error or malicious intent. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the application's data sensitivity, the intended users and their roles, and the security implications of each access method. Developers should always start with the most restrictive access model and progressively grant permissions only as absolutely necessary, documenting the rationale for each decision. This iterative process, combined with regular security reviews and adherence to established development guidelines, ensures the creation of secure and compliant applications. Question 17. Performance analysis shows that a critical IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application is experiencing significant delays in data retrieval and form submission, impacting end-user productivity. The application utilizes a combination of Lotus script agents, Java agents, and Domino views for data management. Which of the following diagnostic approaches is most likely to lead to an efficient and accurate resolution of the performance issue? Option A. Advise users to reduce the complexity of their queries and data entry to mitigate the perceived slowness, without further investigation into the application's code or server configuration. Option B. Increase the Domino server's RAM and CPU allocation, assuming that the server hardware is the primary bottleneck for the application's performance. Option C. Immediately refactor all Lotus script agents to Java, as Java is generally considered a more performant language for complex operations. Option D. Systematically profile the application's Lotus script and Java agents, analyze Domino view query performance, and examine Domino server logs for resource contention or errors. Correct answer is C. Immediately refactor all Lotus script agents to Java, as Java is generally considered a more performant language for complex operations. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development where performance bottlenecks can impact user experience and potentially violate service-level agreements, SLAs, or internal performance standards. The core of the challenge lies in accurately identifying the root cause of the performance degradation within a complex IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application. Developers must move beyond superficial observations to a systematic investigation. The correct approach involves a methodical, data-driven analysis of the application's architecture, code, and Domino server configuration. This aligns with best professional practices by ensuring that solutions are targeted, efficient, and sustainable, rather than resorting to guesswork or broad-stroke changes that could introduce new issues. In the context of IBM Notes and Domino development, this often means leveraging built-in debugging tools, performance monitoring utilities, and understanding the nuances of Lotus script, Java, and Domino's internal processes. Incorrect approaches often stem from a lack of systematic investigation or a reliance on anecdotal evidence. For instance, immediately assuming a particular component is at fault without empirical data can lead to wasted effort and potentially destabilize the system further. Another pitfall is making changes without understanding their cascading effects on other parts of the application or the Domino server. These actions can lead to regulatory or ethical failures if they result in a breach of data integrity, security vulnerabilities, or failure to meet contractual obligations, SLAs, that are often implicitly or explicitly governed by industry standards and best practices. The professional decision-making process should involve 1. Clearly defining the observed performance issue and its impact. 2. Formulating hypotheses about potential causes. 3. Gathering empirical data through profiling, logging, and monitoring tools. 4. Analyzing the data to pinpoint the most probable root cause. 5. Developing and testing targeted solutions. 6. Implementing the solution and verifying its effectiveness. 7. Documenting the process and findings. This structured approach ensures that development efforts are focused, effective, and adhere to professional standards of diligence and accountability. Question 18. Quality control measures reveal that a critical Lotus Notes application is experiencing significant delays in processing user requests, impacting overall productivity. The development team needs to optimize the application's performance. Which of the following strategies is the most appropriate and professionally sound approach to address this issue within the IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition environment? Option A. Implement a complete rewrite of the application using a modern web framework, migrating all data to a relational database outside of Domino. Option B. Refactor existing Lotus script agents and forms to improve data retrieval efficiency and reduce redundant computations, while ensuring thorough testing of all modified components. Option C. Introduce custom, undocumented JavaScript snippets directly into the Notes client interface to bypass server-side processing for certain operations. Option D. Increase the server's hardware resources significantly without analyzing the application's code for specific performance bottlenecks. Correct answer is B. Refactor existing Lotus script agents and forms to improve data retrieval efficiency and reduce redundant computations, while ensuring thorough testing of all modified components. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, balancing performance optimization with maintainability and adherence to established development practices. The professional challenge lies in identifying the most effective and compliant method to improve the processing speed of a critical Lotus Notes application without introducing new risks or violating any implicit or explicit guidelines for application development within the IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition ecosystem. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is not only technically sound, but also aligns with the principles of robust and sustainable application design. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it focuses on leveraging the inherent capabilities of the Domino platform and its development environment for process optimization. This involves understanding the underlying architecture and utilizing built-in features or well-established techniques that are designed for efficiency. By analyzing the application's logic and data flow, developers can identify bottlenecks and implement targeted improvements. This method is often the most compliant as it stays within the intended use and design of the platform, minimizing the risk of introducing instability or unsupported configurations. It prioritizes a deep understanding of the application's current state and the platform's strengths. An incorrect approach that involves significant architectural changes without thorough impact analysis or testing would be professionally unacceptable. Such an approach could lead to unforeseen performance regressions in other areas, increased complexity, and potential instability. Ethically, it fails to uphold the responsibility of delivering a reliable and maintainable solution. Another incorrect approach, such as relying on external, undocumented scripts or hacks, would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This bypasses standard development processes, introduces security vulnerabilities, and makes the application difficult to support or audit. It violates principles of transparency and accountability in software development. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of potential optimization strategies. This begins with a thorough understanding of the problem, including profiling the application to pinpoint the exact areas of inefficiency. Next, developers should research and evaluate solutions that are aligned with the IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition development framework. This includes considering native Domino features, best practices for Lotus script and formula language, and potential architectural adjustments that are well documented and supported. Each potential solution should be assessed for its impact on performance, maintainability, security, and compliance. Finally, a chosen solution should be rigorously tested in a development or staging environment before deployment to production. Question 19. Analysis of a business unit's request to add a new field to a customer contact form within an IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application, which will store customer feedback. The development team is aware that this feedback might contain personally identifiable information, PI, and sensitive details. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure compliance with data protection regulations and maintain application security? Option A. Implement the change, but add a disclaimer to the form stating that the organization is not liable for any sensitive information shared. Option B. Conduct a thorough risk assessment. Consult with the organization's data protection officer, DPO, or compliance team, and ensure the modification adheres to data privacy policies and security best practices before implementation. Option C. Inform the business unit that the request cannot be fulfilled due to potential data security risks without further investigation or consultation. Option D. Proceed with the modification as requested by the business unit to meet their immediate needs, assuming the data will be handled responsibly. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the modification as requested by the business unit to meet their immediate needs, assuming the data will be handled responsibly. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development where a business unit, driven by perceived immediate needs, requests a modification that could have broader implications for data security and compliance. The challenge lies in balancing the business unit's urgency with the overarching responsibility to maintain the integrity and security of sensitive customer data, as mandated by relevant regulations. Developers must navigate potential conflicts between departmental requests and established organizational policies and legal obligations. The risk of unauthorized access or data breaches, even if unintentional, carries significant reputational and financial consequences. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured process of evaluating the request against existing security policies and regulatory requirements. This includes a thorough risk assessment to understand the potential impact of the proposed change on data confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Engaging with the organization's data protection officer, DPO, or a designated compliance representative is crucial. This ensures that any modification aligns with the principles of data minimization, purpose limitation, and security by design, as often stipulated in data privacy regulations. Documenting the assessment and the decision-making process provides an audit trail and demonstrates due diligence. This approach prioritizes compliance and security, safeguarding both the organization and its customers. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing the change without a formal security and compliance review is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses established controls designed to protect sensitive data, potentially violating data privacy laws that mandate specific security measures. This could lead to unauthorized access, data breaches, and severe penalties. Accepting the request solely based on the business unit's urgency, without understanding the data implications, is also problematic. It demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility towards data stewardship and compliance. This can result in the introduction of vulnerabilities that might not be immediately apparent but could be exploited later. Escalating the request to a higher authority without conducting an initial assessment of its compliance implications is inefficient and potentially delays necessary security measures. While escalation is sometimes required, it should be informed by a preliminary understanding of the risks and regulatory landscape. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based, compliance-first mindset. When faced with a request that could impact data security, the decision-making process should involve 1. Understanding the request and its context. 2. Identifying the type of data involved and its sensitivity. 3. Consulting relevant internal policies and external regulatory frameworks, e.g., data privacy laws. 4. Conducting a risk assessment to evaluate potential security and compliance implications. 5. Engaging with relevant stakeholders, including security and compliance teams. 6. Documenting the assessment, decision, and any mitigation strategies. 7. Implementing the approved solution with appropriate security controls. Question 20. The evaluation methodology shows that a developer is tasked with updating a specific field for a large number of user documents in an IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition application. The developer needs to ensure that if any part of the update process fails, no documents are left in an inconsistent state. Which of the following approaches best adheres to professional best practices for data integrity in this scenario? Option A. Directly modify the database file on the server's file system to update the field across all documents. Option B. Iterate through each document, update the field, and save the document immediately before proceeding to the next. Option C. Retrieve all relevant documents into memory, perform the necessary field updates on these in-memory copies, and then save all modified documents back to the database. Option D. Rely on client-side JavaScript to perform the updates as users access their documents. The correct answer is C. Retrieve all relevant documents into memory, perform the necessary field updates on these in-memory copies, and then save all modified documents back to the database. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for efficient application development with the critical requirement of ensuring data integrity and security within an IBM Notes and Domino 9.0 Social Edition environment. Developers must adhere to established best practices and potential regulatory considerations. Though specific regulations are not detailed for this exam, the principle of responsible data handling is universal when implementing solutions that involve sensitive user data. The challenge lies in selecting an approach that is both technically sound and ethically responsible, minimizing the risk of data corruption or unauthorized access. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and controlled method for data manipulation. By first retrieving all necessary data into memory and then performing the updates, the developer ensures that the entire operation is treated as a single unit. This minimizes the risk of partial updates, where some records might be modified while others are not, leading to data inconsistency. This approach aligns with the principle of transactional integrity, even if not explicitly a formal database transaction in the traditional sense. It provides a clear rollback point if an error occurs during the update process, allowing the developer to revert to the original state before the operation began, thus safeguarding data integrity. An incorrect approach that involves updating records one by one, without a mechanism to handle errors or partial failures, is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to a state where some users have updated information while others do not, creating significant data integrity issues and potentially violating implicit data handling standards. Another incorrect approach, such as directly modifying the database without a clear understanding of the potential side effects on other applications or data, demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the interconnectedness of data within a Domino environment. This could inadvertently corrupt data or introduce security vulnerabilities. A third incorrect approach, relying solely on user input for validation without server-side checks, is also problematic as it exposes the application to malicious or accidental data corruption, failing to uphold the responsibility of maintaining a secure and reliable data store. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the data being manipulated and the potential impact of the changes. This involves identifying critical data points, potential failure points, and the desired end state. A robust approach would involve designing for failure, implementing error handling, and considering rollback strategies. Before implementing any significant data modification, developers should consider creating a backup or testing the process in a non-production environment. This methodical approach ensures that the solution is not only functional but also reliable and secure, reflecting a commitment to professional responsibility.